you all for joining. It's a true pleasure to have this conversation this morning. I'm Rafael Zanatta. I'm the director of Data Privacy Brazil Research Association. It's an NGO of digital rights based in São Paulo. I'm also a research fellow of the Institute of the Cooperative Digital Economy. I have some friends here in the room who are also fellows of this program. And together with Mario and Rafael and all the participants, I think this is a truly collective effort to have this conversation. We have set up this meeting to talk about what is the scenario of platform co-ops in Brazil, what are the differences between a more institutionalized sector that already existed in the country, what is going on from the margins, from the solidarity economy, and the really interesting things that are occurring in the country, even though we have a terrific and terrible pandemic with a huge economic and social crisis going on in the country, there are still some really interesting experiments going on. I'll just make a brief introduction about the scenario, and we have conducted this conversation as in a flow in which I will make some questions to the participants and we will talk and engage with each other, and you are all invited to jump into the conversation to also make questions, and we will have some time in the end to have a more freely and collective thinking about it. So Brazil has a very long tradition of cooperativism and solidarity economy. So there are thousands of organizations that are identified as members of the solidarity economy network, and we have more than 6,500 co-ops across the country. Brazil has also a long history of how the co-op sector was institutionalized. So during the military regime, this occurred, and with the emergence of the Organization of Brazilian Co-ops, OLCB, and Samara will talk a lot about it, we had a really advanced structure for the registration and the expansion of co-ops. During the 90s, this structure to promote co-ops emerged as a system itself, and then we had a lot of even co-ops schools that emerged here, and Mario and Camila are members of the systems. They are professors of schools of co-ops, and they can share as well this expertise. In the period of democratization, the solidarity economy was somehow detached itself from cooperativism. So Paul Singer, who was a famous author and economist of the solidarity economy, in a famous text from 2002, even stated that they were two different systems in Brazil, the solidarity economy and the co-ops. The institutionalized co-ops, I think it's fair to say that it was concerned not to assume political flags or political banners, but rather to defend the system itself, the co-op economy itself. But with the emergence of the platform economy of the society and this process of platformization, a question that has been debated in Brazil in the past 5 to 10 years is how can this tradition of co-ops and solidarity economy can strengthen the movement of platform cooperativism? So how can the emergence of this solidarity-based entrepreneurship and social innovation through platforms and the principles of economic democracy and collective data management and data governance be strengthened by this tradition that we have in Brazil? So these are the basic questions that are surrounding this conversation, so to speak. I will begin with Mario de Conto, who is a person who has been discussing platformization of the economy and been highly involved in the movement of platform co-ops in Brazil for many years. And Mario, I know you have attended a major conference in 2018 that identified platform cooperativism as an opportunity to reinvent cooperativism in Brazil itself. Can you explain how this trajectory has been? How you think it's inside the system, the opportunities of platform economy?
Okay, first of all, I'm glad to be here with you all to discuss the platform cooperatives in Brazil. And thank you, Rafael, for this introduction and for your question. So I will start talking that I have been working at the Organization of Brazilian Cooperatives here in the state of Rio Grande do Sul with labor cooperatives, worker cooperatives for many years. And so the worker cooperatives were our initial focus since 2018, when we started researching platform cooperatives. And that time, we were particularly interested in how worker cooperatives operated through a digital governance structure and how this perspective allows them to operate at the national level. So we started our research from worker platform cooperatives established in other countries to understand better the model and how can we do it better in Brazil. And from the analysis of these initiatives, we evaluated the Brazilian legislation concerning cooperative societies, as well the economic scenario, identifying the driving and restricting factors for platform cooperatives. Where we then identified some restrictive points and proposed ideas for the development of platform cooperatives. And a very relevant point at the end of our project was the elaboration of an online course on platform cooperatives at the request of the Organization of Brazilian Cooperatives. It's a course for Portuguese speakers. And about this result, Samara will provide more details after. And so you asked me about the trajectory. I see this trajectory from the identification of the restrictive factors to development of platform cooperatives in Brazil, then the dissemination of the information to interested parties and some support measures from the OCB system. And I think we have a good future horizon for the development of platform cooperatives in Brazil.
And you have conducted some extensive research on the legal obstacles. You have mentioned that you were concerned about the restrictive factors of platform co-ops in Brazil. Can you explain, also for those who are not Brazilians, the importance of the schools of co-ops and the support from CAPES? I think you had a major grant to identify that, correct?
Yeah.
To research that, and some of the results of this research?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I'm coordinator of a research project with the support of OCB and CNPq, is the council, research council of Brazil. As coordinator of this project, we have the objective to identify these factors and to propose measures for the development of platform cooperatives in Brazil. And from our research, we identified 4 important points for the development of platform cooperatives. The first, and I think is the more important, is the capital. Because a Brazilian law does not allow the admission of investors in cooperatives, different of other countries as Canada or United States, for instance. But other instruments, such the participation of cooperatives in non-cooperative societies, could be used as a way to allow external financing. And nowadays, we have also a new regulation about startups in Brazil, and cooperatives are included in the list of enterprise that can access new financial instruments. And so this issue deserves further reflection in order to guarantee the cooperatives' autonomy. It's very important. it's important to think about financial instruments that guarantee the cooperative autonomy. The second point is scale. Platform cooperatives are challenged to operate in markets dominated by large global economies, and so companies, sorry. And so cooperation between local cooperatives and platform with national and international operations can be an opportunity to gain scale. Acting in niches can also be an alternative strategy in the case of cooperatives. Here in my state, we have a new drivers cooperative called Comobi. And the interesting point of this initiative is that this cooperative was created with the support of local associations. And it could be a way to improve the scale of the cooperative in the beginning. The third point is the multi-stakeholder model. Brazilian law allows the constitution of cooperative with different classes of members. However, we can't have an equal treatment clauses in these different classes. And so the existence of different classes of members present new challenges to the governance in such types of cooperatives. Because when we think, for instance, in a cooperative of drivers, classes of members comprised by drivers, by passengers, we have more conflict of interests between these classes. And so we have to think about new governance instruments to deal with these conflicts. And the last point is the digital governance. And recently, with the participation of the OCB system, we had a new article in our general law of cooperatives, and now it's possible to do general assemblies and meetings in the remote way. And so now we can do it remote, the law under the Brazilian law, but we have some issues concerning the digital governance, as to think about asynchronous instruments of democracy. And so after Camila can talk about it, because we worked together about this issue about the digital governance.
Fantastic. And this seems like a side effect of the pandemic as well, correct? Because I saw a lot of movements because of the opportunity of doing general assemblies in a remote way and using technology, and the pandemic certainly affected the whole movement. Very interesting, Mario. I will return to these 4 factors later on. And let me jump to and ask Rafael Grohmann how he sees this movement as well. Rafael is a leader at Unisinos, a very well-known professor in Brazil. He's the creator of DG Labor and also the founder of the Platform Cooperative Observatory. And Rafael, you have criticized the precariousness of the work on platforms. You have been researching a lot that issue and defended the dignity of cooperativism. How do you see this in Brazil, in a country that is so unequal and so connected, so digital at the same time?
Yeah, first of all, hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I have been researching platform co-op since 2018, and this is a key issue of our research agenda on Digital Labor Research Lab. And I understand platform labor as a laboratory of class struggles. And this is even more intense in a country like Brazil. And our work here is understand how can we stress the term platform cooperativism to extend it without losing its specificities towards worker-owned platforms, bringing together fair work and design justice principles, and also going beyond Eurocentric perspective regarding both platform and co-op, because platform is already a concept that doesn't relate everywhere in the same way. So what does mean platform here in Brazil may consider slightly differently for related to New York or London or so on. And so platform co-ops must be understood as working class laboratories and experiments without a ready-made formula, because the people have anxiety to build the things tomorrow. This is a complicated issue. These are emerging forms of organization, like exciting example of Mario Comob here in Rio Grande do Sul. And that's part of process with many contradictions and so on. I think that Brazil is one of the countries with the most vibrant online community around platform co-op, and we need to turn it into public policies. And I will highlight four aspects of my work here at DigiLabor Research Lab, and four dimensions of this work. The first is the Fairwork project. I'm the principal investigator of Fairwork project in Brazil. And we have highlighted the importance of evaluating the best and worst platform practices in 20 countries of the world. And in Latin America, the best platform score in Fairwork have 3 points to 10 regarding major platforms. And now we will start to score platform co-ops too here in Brazil, and also to compare and to relate fair work principles and to show the importance of platform co-ops in a country like Brazil. And they need to set up fair work principles to platform co-ops. The other thing, I'm in an ongoing research on riders co-ops and collectives in Brazil, especially in cities of Porto Alegre and São Paulo. And it's an action research to prototype technologies from workers' perspectives and for workers' co-design and design justice. This is a great challenge because it's so difficult. And this construction also take place together with policymakers and other social movements too. And in this year, our research lab launched the Platform Co-op Observatory here in Brazil, funded by Rosa Luxemburg Institute. And this observatory shares news, research, and videos to regarding platform co-ops for the Brazilian audience, with this translation with Portuguese and explanatory videos on platform principles and practices. And next year, we will organize a hackathon here in Porto Alegre to develop platform co-ops in partnership with the City Hall of São Leopoldo here in Rio Grande do Sul. And the last point is, together with colleagues from the Terra Comum Research Network, we have been discussing decolonial perspectives for co-ops in digital economy. And we have also been researching how data co-ops can be an alternative to data colonialism. And specifically, Paola Ricardo Quijano and I have research funded by IT for Change on the possibilities of data co-ops in a country like Brazil, trying to connect other autonomous digital movements and digital infrastructure movements, like Maria Lab here in Brazil is a feminist hacker collective that produces and circulates content on digital security, privacy, and self-care from feminist perspectives in building feminist infrastructures, and how to we need to learn from these local initiatives that struggle for another data culture directed to the commons, and how data co-ops and platform co-ops can be a step towards developing digital sovereignty and data sovereignty in Latin America, and specifically in Brazil.
That's fantastic, Rafa, and the observatory is a truly great experiment, and I really praise your work here in the country. It's fantastic. You have mentioned something very valuable, which is like how the periphery, collectives, autonomous movements, they can embrace this movement. What do you see are the main obstacles? Last year, for instance, for those that do not follow Brazil, we had a major conversation about the protests of application delivery workers, whole conversation about how periphery leaders could also constitute co-ops. There was this excitement, this idea being shared, but then we did not have projects because they are complex and they are hard to achieve. What do you see are the main obstacles? Mario have mentioned some of them. How do you see those obstacles for the collectives and the periphery?
Great. My two main sectors on platform co-ops are writer co-ops or media co-ops, journalism and creative industries and so on. The focus on writers is so difficult because people think that they will build a great platform tomorrow and building and starting well and so on. And we need to build public policies, and the work of Mario regarding legal perspectives here is so important, and to set up platform co-op as a public policies in many dimensions, in local dimension, in the states and the federal and in Brazilian dimension too. I think this is very important to set up the importance of state in building platform co-ops here. But there are interesting examples. One of these exciting examples is Comobi from Caxias do Sul here in Rio Grande do Sul. But there are another great example from homeless workers movement here in Brazil. They built a thing that is not exactly a platform and not exactly a co-op, but a technology built from below of homeless workers movements here. They built a chatbot named Leon, connecting workers from homeless workers movement here in Brazil and consumers they need designers or painters, and built from below from these workers movement, and the technology sector of this movement built on Paulo Freire's perspectives on education, on pedagogy, and technology. This is interesting example. The platform is called Hire Who Fights, or Hire Who Struggles, here in Brazil, Contrate Quem Luta. Another thing is the need to connect free software movements and hackerspace movements with the workers movements and workers organizations. In Brazil, we have a past mainly in Workers' Party government and Lula's government, and the strength of free software movement here, and we need to connect these perspectives, because in France and Europe we have a great example, co-op cycle, but we can built here from below these technologies. And I think this can be very important. And now policymakers are starting to look at platform co-ops. Yesterday, I was at a public hearing in the Chamber of Deputies here in Brazil about regulation of platform labor here. And I spoke about the importance of understanding platform co-op as a public policy. And I'm very surprised because a name of our workers' ministry know platform co-ops, and other people from the Brazilian government know platform co-op, and we need to connect our academic movement and other movements. And I think this panel is a great opportunity to us. Thank you, Rafa.
Oh, fantastic, Rafa. It's really important what you said, to moving beyond this reactive agenda of just regulating Uber or Airbnb and so on, and moving towards an active agenda of policy making and decentralizing the economy towards economic democracy and the connection with the social movements. Really, really important. Let me jump to Camila, because she's also connected to the territory. She's a professor of co-ops in Rio Grande do Sul, and also connected to active movements and entrepreneurship. And Camila, I would like to ask you how economic democracy can combine with management and governance, because many people say that cooperativism does not work. And could you explain why this is not true, and how does cooperativism combine with technology and governance?
Sure, thanks, Rafa. Well, it's a pleasure to be here since we were together 2 years ago in New York City, so thanks a lot. Well, the cooperative spirits come from an alternative view of the world. I think it's a vision in which each person has a voice, regardless of whether they have capital or money. But if you think of that today, this is not natural in our society. So we don't teach this in college, but if we can see, if it's still less since 1844. It's not something natural for what we are seeing together today in our society, but cooperatives represent 12% of the world population and employs around 10% of the employees of the world. So it's at the same time a niche, but at the same time is big. So we have a big problem with communication and explaining how co-ops work and what are they good for. Even as a teacher, we know that the employees of co-ops, they don't get it, where they work, why cooperatives are different. Mainly the issue regarding profit and benefit. Since we are in a capitalist world, people are really, really focused on not the benefit of this enterprise, but the profit. And this is not how cooperatives work. So we also have another point of view that's really important in cooperatives, that's the power distribution. And what we have seen is that we need to take this tool that works, that is unique and kind of antique, but we know that works to distribute power through capital. So if you are a member, you own a part of this cooperative and you have power, but it's not because of the capital, it's because of the person you represent. So this is super innovative even for today because the scenario we live in. But from the point of view of governance, we have seen both the traditional cooperatives after COVID-19 with the digital assembly strategies bloom. We have been researching this since 2017 about digital assemblies, and Mario was with me and we were like, no one gets it, no one wants this. Our research showed in a credit union cooperative system that from 100 cooperatives, In 2018, just 3 were testing digital assemblies. After COVID, we have 100% of these cooperatives using digital assemblies. Of course, the new article in the law in Brazil helped, but I think this recent pandemic helped a lot accelerating these digital ways of participation. And that's why we started to research and to inspire ourselves in the cooperative platform cooperative movement, because the traditional cooperatives were too blind exploring these opportunities before COVID. And what we found out in our research, since I am with Mario in the research group, is that the platform co-ops are not that amazing in participation tools yet. I mean, if you access regarding the user experience of the platform of the app, you don't see, for example, the users button. It's much more developed, and the owners button, like how much is costing my cooperative this month? How can I vote this month? So almost none of the cooperatives we researched had such a feature, such important features that's giving through digital possibilities more proximity of the true participation. So it was a little bit, we expected more. So one of these cooperatives that you probably all know a lot is Stoxy. And it's not from Brazil, but we get a lot of inspiration from them because they are in more than 60 countries, and they do have an interesting governance model. So people, for example, for the General Assembly of that year, they can vote during the year which agenda they want to see in the General Assembly. It's a small thing, but even though it's something more than what we have seen in other cooperatives. And also another thing we saw in our research is that through the digital era, assemblies is not enough. We could participate in our cooperatives every day, in every decision, in every design solution. And we see today in capital solution, like stock market companies, they give more information to the member, to the user, than us cooperatives. So I think the traditional cooperatives I work more with, we learned the importance of governance, because if we don't keep members interested on being owners, these co-ops can die. So I think our provocation is important, so everyone can think more about governance on this digital area. And another thing that I think other people are inspiring on cooperatives that I have been seeing in Brazil is the movement from the technology and agile community. So that if you see, for example, a group of software engineers looking for self-management, sociocracy, holacracy, books like Reinventing Organizations, and they see about, oh, let's everyone participate. Well, but I still have more power because I am the owner. So if I share ownership, maybe everyone can participate. Oh, and they realize this exists already. This is a cooperative. And we were like, yeah, we are not new. Come with us. So a lot of people from these internet movements are seeing cooperatives a solution. Of course, and I will mention later that we have some difficulties for that, but I think we have a really potential movement in Brazil.
Fantastic. And I saw many great videos of yourself, Camila, explaining the concept and the movements to young people. I know you teach as well at some schools and you have interaction with young folks and people from different areas. What potential do you see for this emerging movement as well within universities and grad students from engineering and economics and administration in Rio Grande do Sul? Do you see a potential for this emerging digital economy based on this interdisciplinary conversation?
Yes, of course. I think every cooperativist believes in education, because we know that this is a huge difficulty of the movement. When someone learns about cooperativism, well, sometimes I do know some people that we say it's not a match. They don't see their values on cooperativism, but I think the society right now has more values aligned to cooperativism than 10 years ago. So people want to share, want to save the world, want to collaborate, want social justice, diversity. And if we can see that the movement has all of this in our DNA, the problem is that a lot of people doesn't know. I was seeing Mary from the new school mentioning that they are putting in new school in every course a little bit of cooperatives activism content. This is really important for us in Brazil and in the world too. So some of the provocations we should do is teaching in schools, but also when, for example, we do a hackathon or a startup weekend, why can't these startups don't think about how are they going to function on their governance, on being a cooperative and not a regular company? So big cooperatives in Brazil, we have more than 4 or 5 of the biggest cooperatives in the world, should incentivize this more, intercooperation. So we have a lot of open innovation programs, I think Samara is going to mention, and we should incentivize that these new companies that are coming, they should come as cooperatives, and we can do this a little bit more.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Camila. Let me jump to Georgia, who's also a really good friend and also a person involved in the relationship between co-ops and the commons and social movements in Brazil. Georgia is the director of an important organization in Brazil, Instituto Procomum. And I would like to ask you, Georgia, how can we reinvent the values of co-ops and solidarity economy, which are old, in the 21st century with the social movements? How do you see this relationship?
Hi, Rafa. Hi, everybody. Good morning and good afternoon. So my name is Georgia. As Rafa said, I'm from Instituto Procomum, which is an organization with a really strong focus on commons-based values and practices. We've been working since 2016. We have an innovation lab in the coastal area of São Paulo. And I think it's really interesting that so many of you are from Rio Grande do Sul. I think 80% of this session is from the South. And I was thinking about the tradition of Rio Grande do Sul, also with the movement of participatory budget, which is really strong in Brazil and kind of exported this notion of participatory policies for the world. And I think up until now, a lot of people still see us as an example, even though we're not so strong anymore with this. And I think it's important also to highlight how it was also from Rio Grande do Sul that a lot of the free software movement that we had FISLI, which was the international meeting of free software that happened, and also of course the World Social Forum. And I'm quoting that because I think all of these is really connected. I think we have a strong tradition in Brazil, you know, of participatory movements and power distribution and really grassroots movements that have been working with values aligned with cooperativism. So I don't think that I think reinvent maybe should, I mean, I don't know if the word is reinventing, Rafa, but I think it's also kind of part of it is also rescuing it, because I think we got lost at some point. But I think What we do at Procomum, by when I say practicing the commons, is really, highlighting the fact that, most of us have really strong, notions of cooperating with each other. It's just, and one really important thing that we have learned through the years, we have also a school, and we are really focused on also, creating networks and education for commons and cooperative values. And I think it's really important to, highlight the fact that we can all learn and practice. So cooperation and being collaborative is something that you can be taught, and that you can practice, and then it's important that you can experiment. And what we have seen in these years is that once you experiment that, the notion of, co-ownership is really powerful to unleash, autonomy, to unleash creativity, to unleash, better solutions for, the complex problems that we face and mostly most vulnerable people in Brazil face. So I think that, by working with social movements and also, what we call underrepresented communities, and we call like that because it's people that have been for centuries renegated their right to be a citizen, right? I think we know that Brazil has a long story of, the state and the market being excluding people of color or class and gender. So, and by working with them, what we see is that there's a strong tradition of, helping each other. We even have our own names in Portuguese for that. So the gambiarra, gato, jeitinho, and there's a long tradition of people studying this as innovation, as citizen innovation, like solutions that people create in order to create a better life for them and for the collectives and their communities. And I'm saying that because I think this has everything to do with cooperativism. And now that we're facing elections, our main focus is really, not only reinvent it, but mostly make it visible, the fact that we have a lot of people that are creating solutions every day. Because if we hadn't had so many creativity and innovation, people weren't alive. If we think that most of, maybe half of the population now are insecure about whether they're going to eat or not, recently, this is the data that we have access to. So economic crisis, unemployment, huge unemployment, big informality at jobs, mostly affecting, single moms. So how come these people are still alive and creating their own ways of, being, there and feeding themselves and people? And I think this is important that you highlight because they share solidarity, because they share cooperation, because they create solutions. And this is what we call citizen innovation. And I think this is really important because I think it's also the basis. So think of it, how it would be if we had public policies that are looking for, the future of jobs, the future of money. And I think with elections coming, I think we have a huge opportunity to really put this, at the center of the debate, because I think it's time now, and I think we have all the tools and the critical thinking for that. By seeing my colleagues that just spoke before me, I have seen that we have a lot of also academic data about it and practitioners doing that. So I think, from my perspective, from Procomum perspective, we're really interested in also creating like a movement building, that, that becomes also putting the center of the values of cooperativism and solidarity economy, but and also like the discussions of governance, shared governance, at the center of the discussion of a more democratic economy and policies for the next years of Brazil.
And Georgia, we know that it's very hard as well to think and execute projects of the commons when we're talking about the digital, and even to have like the common governance of immaterial resources such as data. We know that many communities in Brazil succeeded in doing commons arrangements in which the resources were natural or physical. how do you see the challenges of doing so when the resources are immaterial, the creation is more like knowledge-based, and it's difficult as well to define the limits and the participants and the methods of collective governance?
Yeah, Rafa, I think like we work, I mean, I also would take the opportunity to, like make a statement about Silke Helfrich, who just died last week, was a really great commoner from Germany. And also in her book with David Bollier about the commons, they made a graphic that, we like to show a lot about commons. And then every time you have a community with resources and protocols, you have a commons. And I think when I mean resources, it could be all kinds of resources, not only natural, right? I think we already evolved, and even Eleanor Ostrom evolved in this discussion about immaterially intangible resources. And what we see is that, for us, the Citizen Lab, which is the space that we have, every time you have communities creating knowledge, a Citizen Lab is necessary. So what we do is like, we are really a platform to support commons being created by people, and these commons are created like in an everyday basis. If you think about commons as a practice, so there's no commons without commoning, as Massimo De Angelis says. So it's really a practice of, and when Camila was speaking about governance, I think this is a key discussion. And no matter what kind of resources you are sharing or you are managing or co-managing, you have to have your protocols, and these protocols has to be accessible, they have to be dynamic, they have to be participative, you have to have conflict management that is like low cost, so people can solve their conflicts, and for that also communication is key, and training skills are key, right? So an ongoing process of learning and discussing and dialogue, communicating. So this is what we really practice at Procomum in a number of our projects. And this is why also we value so much also the concept of care. We really do believe that caring for yourself, for others, for the planet is also the pavement for creating a commons. Because, conflict is for sure it's going to happen. So, but how do you create far from the conflict, with the conflict, in order to, create shared power, decision making, and keeping people together. And I think one of the things that we have seen also is that necessity brings people together, right? If you need that, and then if you need to share that resource and you need to be involved in that, but not only, and I think this is the second thing that we have been working a lot, is also care and affection. So which we also consider necessity if we think about the future, what the world we want, right? Because I think for us and for me, we're not talking only about technical values. I think we're also talking about political values of what kind of world we need, and what kind of world we want. And I think this was also what the commons is about. And I also think this is what the cooperative movement can be about creating a different world where more people, have co-ownership, co-governance, and also, autonomy, and are capable of using their creativity, and be involved in creating the solutions for their lives and for their communities.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Georgia. It's so inspiring to hear you. I know there are some people here who are not Brazilian, like Jacqueline. She mentions she's a co-op attorney in the US. And I would like to ask Samara to explain about the initiatives in the system of OCB and also projects like Innova Co-op. And I think it would be very important, Samara, to hear as well, so you could explain what is the system itself, what is the power and the meaning of OCB as a system, and what are the things you were doing there, because there are so many projects going on regarding platform co-ops within OCB.
Good morning or good afternoon to everyone. I'm really happy to be here with you. So thank you for the invitation. Well, I'm the innovation coordinator here in OCB. And OCB is the organization of Brazilian cooperatives. It consists three entities, and together we perform political representation and we promote the cooperative system in Brazil, in all the fronts of work, all the ways to foster this important movement. We have a huge movement here in Brazil, and we are here to represent them. And we have been fostering a culture of innovation in cooperatives, and Platform Coop is one of the topics we have been developing through information and education, which Camila mentioned is an important thing that we do to help people to understand what is cooperativism and help also the co-ops how the digital economy and how platform can help their business too. And now answering your question, Platform Co-op is definitely one of the most important topics that we have working in. There is a growing demand for information about it, and not only established cooperatives that want to know more about digital platforms topic to innovate in their business, but also people that are not integrated yet to this movement. They are very interested in finding out more about platform co-ops and how it works, which are the steps to start. So recently we have developed a program to connect startups to co-ops. Through this program, we are going to help and support the development of 2 digital platform co-ops, one in transport sector and one in goods and service sector. We are now starting the development phase of the pilot project. And our website, InovaCoop, that you mentioned it's another important initiative we have launched to foster innovation among Brazilian co-ops. Digital transformation, innovation culture, management, tools, methodologies, and also platform co-ops. In our website, we offer a wide range of content in this topic: blog posts, interviews, cases, ebooks, and an online courses. An online course. Recently, we also developed with Mario de Conto through ESCOOP, who is a partner in these courses. We complement this theoretical course that we present in InovaCoop, focused on the developing the practicals, how these people who are interested in this topic can put the hands-on to set up their own platform co-business. So this happened last month, and we are just receiving lots of positive feedbacks. And finally, I would like to tell you that the OCB system, we launched in July, the Negócios Coop platform. The website is negocios.coop.br, which is a digital intercooperation platform. It's a way to promote, to foster business between cooperatives. We would like to strengthen business and cooperation. Intercooperation is one of the principles of cooperativism. So we just joined these topics and we launched this platform. Well, we have been acting on different ways to foster this topic here in Brazil. I just tell you about some of them. And if people here want to know more, you can go to our website or to innova.coop.br. But please, sorry, it's only on Portuguese.
Yeah, we have a major challenge of translating everything is being produced in Brazil. Before jumping into the reactions from people, and I see Luciana Bruno wants to make a comment, let me just ask you a final question, Samara. We know that Brazilian co-ops are really strong in the fields of agriculture and credit and health sector, for instance. These are the three biggest areas of co-ops in Brazil. But when we talk about platformization and platform co-ops, maybe there are like different sectors who are like more prone, more able to be be included in the system of platforms. Which sectors you think are more prone to that transformation of being platform co-ops, and which sectors you think will not work? Like, doesn't even, we don't even need to put some effort on that. Can you share some thoughts after these years of reflections and working in InnovaCoop?
Well, honestly, I don't see any sector that are not interested in this topic, because digital platforms, if the business is not thinking about it, they have to. But they are in different phases. Some sectors has already discussed it, and they are certain in a way to develop a platform solution, and some sectors are in an initial stage, and they demand objectives have not been elaborated yet, so they just starting on this topic. But I believe the topic has a great potential across all sectors of the economy. Some of the sectors that have been demonstration greater interest about that we receive here in OCB, and we have listened about is agriculture, transportation and delivery service, health, data and IT, energy, financial service, general service like cleaning, constructors, electricians, health professionals like psychologists, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, nurses, and education and creative economy professionals that we have a lot in Brazil, like teachers, designers, communicators, artists, artisans, journalists, musicians. I think all these sectors already shown their interest in this sector. But as I already told you, I think that the topic has a great potential across all the sectors of our economy.
Fantastic. This reminds me that I interviewed some people in the field of co-ops this year, and I asked from folks from Cooper System, which is like, I think it's the biggest IT co-op in the world, probably. And I asked how things were going in the pandemics, and they told me, well, it's crazy because so much work and it's so difficult to retain people because of the pandemics. IT professionals can freely work anywhere, so they can go work for a German company or a Japanese company. So it's also difficult to retain people and attract people to be in this co-ops, which is a challenge as well when we talk about how we can freely work in this scenario of online working. So let us jump to Luciana, who wants to make a comment. And please, folks, you can all participate in the conversation. This is a collective conversation, so raise your hand and I'll pass to you. Luciana, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all. For those who don't know me, I'm Luciana. I'm a journalist, and I was a research fellow for the ISDE in 2019. I have actually two questions, one for Mario and another one for Rafael. I would like if Mario could detail a little bit more about this new regulation for startups, and how could co-ops be considered in this regulation and why? Because he mentioned about this financial instruments that co-ops could access I would need more explanation about that, because which financial instruments they could access, and why would they be considering this new regulations of startups since they are a co-op. And the second one is about public policies that Rafael mentioned. And he mentioned that he had like this meeting in Brazilian Congress. I would like to know more about how can the movement increase the advocacy for public policies, since we have this, as Rafael mentioned, more of a reactive agenda when it comes to regulating delivery workers' work, etc. This is elections coming. How can we increase this advocacy, this lobbying from our side when it comes to the movement of cooperatives, platform cooperatives? Thank you.
Thank you, Luciana. So Mario, with you.
Okay, thank you. First of all, nice to see you, Luciana, and thank you for your question. Well, this new regulation about startups included the cooperatives on the list of entities that can be considered a startup. And what is the difference of the regulation of startups and the other enterprise? Is that in the startups, startups will allow investors to put money into the startup without being a member of the startup. And so they don't have the same responsibilities of other members of enterprises. In other words, that restrictions under Brazilian law that investors in cooperatives, if you think about startups, we don't have this restriction because the investor will not be a member of the cooperative. Understood? And so it's a different type of participation in an enterprise, because it allows someone to be investor without being a member. And so this is the huge difference in the legal aspects of startups that I think new cooperatives can use to improve their model.
Well, thank you so much for your question, Luciana. And I think we need collective efforts towards advocacy and policy making here. And I agree with you that regulation in the agenda of regulation of platform labor here in Brazil is so reactive and so restricted. And we wrote in Fairwork UK a policy report on regulation of platform work with a strong point on the need of strained platform co-op in the law and in the policymakers in the UK. And maybe we can draft and set up together a collective policy report here among us Brazilians here, and to strong this advocacy efforts towards the importance of general elections next year, because I think platform co-op can be a central point of left agenda of political parties next year, and I think this is our agenda too.
Great. If Samara, Georgia, or Camila wants to jump into as well, and or Luciana to react, please. It's clear, Luciana? And these are great questions, because I agree with you. It's quite bizarre to consider in the framework of startups co-ops, but at the same time it makes sense, you know, as Mario said. It was an opportunity as well, right for advocacy, I suppose. Marcelo made a question here in the chat, and I will read it out loud. Marcelo Paladino Castro. The question is, how many platform co-ops are incorporated today in Brazil versus co-ops that make use of digital platform technology to enhance or scale current operations? So I don't know if you have that figure or number. I know, Samara, that OCB has published some reports about the increase of co-ops that are now registered as technology ones, because before this label did not exist. I even wrote a text with Rafael Grohmann showing this expansion in the numbers last year, but I know that many co-ops that are using technology, they do not want to be recognized as platform co-ops. They just want to use technology instrumentally. Do you guys know this, if there is this concrete number or increase?
First of all, we are discussing yet the meaning of platform cooperativism in Brazil. The meaning that is in the book of Trebor that you translate, Rafael, the one who is 100% digital, build the business to work all in digital. We have a few in Brazil, just few, but we have a lot of traditional cooperatives that have been working in digital platform, and it's not that they are going to migrate their business to work 100% in digital, but they are also going to work or offer some business through platform. So we have a lot of discussions here, because sometimes people interviewed us, and sometimes I call Mario and I say, Mario, please help me. I can't define this like a platform co-op, but if I don't put this in the nest, it's just like I'm letting go, because sometimes I go to the PCC website and I can see that there is not a rigid way of meaning of platform co-op. And I think that we should not be so rigid here too. And so we are just like this, but if we use a strict way to enumerate them, I think that we have less than 5. But if we put all the digital platform that put co-ops together, we have more than 20. But they are few, I know, but the interest is great. There is a lot of people thinking about it and working on it.
There's another question here, I think comes from Lorena. She's saying that the internet connection is not so good, but it's to Samara or Mario. The question, if there are advocacy initiatives of OCB towards including cooperativism and platform co-ops in the agenda of the candidates of the next year's election. We know many of you comment about that. The issue is emerging and can be adopted by some political candidates. The question is about an active work of making sure that this agenda will be in the platform of the candidates.
Mario, are you going to answer this?
Yeah, I can. Okay, OCB has a huge advocacy work on our Congress in several fields. And as Samara told before, when we think about platform cooperatives and when we think about the concept of platform cooperatives, the concept of platform cooperative of the International Cooperative Alliance is a cooperative created under the cooperative principles that operates through a platform, a digital platform. And so the concept of platform cooperative, if we think, is similar to the other cooperatives. The difference is the way of this platform cooperative works. And so we think, for instance, these questions about these issues about the capital for cooperatives, they are not only for platform cooperatives, but for all cooperatives. When we think about digital governance, as Camila mentioned, we need to think instruments to the digital governance for all cooperatives. In my feeling, all the traditional cooperatives in the next years will develop their digital platforms, and so we will have cooperatives, traditional cooperatives with platforms, new born digital cooperatives, and so I think we don't have a specific agenda for platform cooperatives, but the OCB has a huge advocacy work on the Congress to improve the cooperative movement and to guarantee these needs of these new cooperatives. I don't know if you want to talk about it, Samara.
No, it's just because here in OCB, we don't indicate the congressman to vote. Also, we do an education program to teach people how to vote well, but we don't indicate, oh, vote in this man or in this woman. We only show them what is important to choose a candidate. And so our work is after this congressman or congresswoman is voted to help them to put co-ops in good decisions in the Congress. And we really do a huge work in advocacy, but not before the election and after, doing an agenda of the interests of co-ops.
Great. As far as I can tell, Lorena, I know that the people from Fundação Perseu Abramo, which is a foundation created and managed by the Workers' Party, they had conducted several seminars during the year of 2021, and they discussed platform co-ops as well in the broader agenda of rethinking the platform economy. So maybe that can come into the agenda of the Workers' Party in next year's election, but maybe it's too soon to tell that. I know that there are some really clever people working in this foundation and studying that, and we know from the past years that this has come as well in some past programs of the Labour Party around the world, as in the UK or social movements in Spain as well. So it would not surprise us if we see this in one of the agendas. I know there's another question here from, I think it's about examples, from Maria Clara, and she was asking Rafa, Grohmann and others if we could provide some examples from Brazil. And I know, Rafa, you have listed many examples in your observatory about collectives and autonomous groups who are not platform co-ops themselves in legal terms, but they are adopting the principles and the ideas. Could you tell a little bit about those groups? You have produced some great videos as well.
Yeah, I think in our platform co-op observatory here, we are not competing with platform co-op directory from Trebor Scholz and from PCC. maybe we can strengthen our Brazilian directory on worldwide directory of platform co-op observatory directory on consortium, because we have now in the directory there are 6 co-ops in Brazil, and actually we have more than 6 platform co-ops here. Comobi that Mario mentioned. Kataki is also in directory. There are other types and other platform collectives or worker-owned platforms like Hire Who Struggles, Contrato Quem Luta, for instance. And maybe this can be another effort from our side at Platform Co-op Observatory.
Fantastic. And I think this comment from Luciana is really important because Kataki, for instance, which is a major example, it's an NGO. And we know, for instance, Cargon, which is also a brilliant example of digital co-op working with logistic and working within the sector of transportation and was funded by co-ops. It's not legally formed as a co-op. So we have this complexity of different models, organizational models, and even some emerging entrepreneurship coming up without the legal form of co-op in the traditional way, right, Mario? And one of the struggles right now is also to use this as an opportunity to rethink the legal concepts of co-ops that were like hardly shaped during the 70s and 80s in Brazil, also to allow diversity of co-ops in legal terms, because we know from interview and Luciana's research from last year showed that there is a legal problem within the Brazilian co-ops as well. It's too rigid, not attractive for many reasons. So many emerging social innovations are choosing not to be a co-op in the traditional way. This is a true challenge also for us in order to understand who are the platform co-ops in Brazil, so to speak. So it's a more blurred scenario than a really clear one. I don't know if you want to jump into that as well, Mario.
Yeah, for instance, when we think about the restrictions, especially about the capital on a new platform cooperatives, if we admit the investors in platform cooperatives, putting more than 50% of the money from an investor, which will be the difference between a cooperative and a company? This is the key. And so would you have to admit investors without other criteria? For instance, in Canada, a cooperative can operate in the market shares, for instance. It's not good for cooperative. We have a lot of experiences in Canada that cooperatives failed and became capital enterprise. And so we have to discuss what is the role of the cooperatives in a country as Brazil. I am discussing, for instance, with a group of owners of little restaurants in Brazil. They would like to create a cooperative to compete with iFood, for instance. But under our law, is not possible to create a cooperative only with legal persons. And so how can we deal with this? Should we allowed enterprise to create cooperatives? It will guarantee our cooperative identity. This is the kind of things that we need to discuss and to think to integrate these ideas of new forms, new ways of capital, and the guarantee of the cooperative identity. I don't have these answers, but I think it will be necessary to discuss this in order to make the cooperative model more attractive, as you mentioned it.
Fantastic. I think the conversation is truly awesome. I'm afraid we have extended the time that we had in a formal way, so to speak. We had 1 hour and 10 minutes and we expanded that. So I would like to thank you so much. I think we should exchange contacts and emails and continue the conversation. I will put mine here in the chat. And there are this observatory that Rafael Grohmann mentioned. Samara mentioned the work of InnovaCoop. Mario de Conto mentioned the whole work he's been conducting through CNPq's support and working at ESCOOP. Please also get to know George's Nicolau's Instituto Procomum and DG Labor. And many folks here also are really connected to the movement in Brazil. So I'd like to thank you very much for being in this morning, in this conversation. It was truly fantastic. I think Levi is raising his hand, or your microphone is muted, Levi, please.
First of all, I would like to congratulate all of you for this excellent conversation, for your friendly and clever conducting of the conversation, for each contribution. And I'd like to suggest, as you have here, Platform Cooperative Consortium, as you have here, Rafa, Grohmann, Samara, you could organize at least once a month or 2 months, a conversation like that. Because I think it's very important to exchange ideas, mostly from people who are coordinates important activities. And I think it's very necessary because you have a lot of possibilities in Brazil, but we still have few organizations, as Samara mentioned. I think Connecta could help us. Platform Cooperative Consortium can put out together, and OCB as well. And I think at least once a month or 2 months, you could meet in an online meeting like this. I think it would be a great opportunity to exchange ideas and even work together in some initiatives. Okay,
that's a fantastic
congratulations
idea.
For all of you. It was a fantastic conversation.
Thanks, Levi. And so great to see that movement and that meeting 2 years ago in 2019, in which we exchanged so much, is continuing, and we can move forward. As Luciana mentioned, next year's conference will be in Rio de Janeiro, so we can use your idea to prepare monthly warm-up conversations to build the movement. It would be fantastic. So I really like to thank you all, and let's move forward with this idea, Levi. I will push Aman and Trebor to get the support of the consortium. Everyone here can compromise of doing their political effort as well to make it happen. And thank you so much. It was a true pleasure.
Okay.
We'll see you all in the next conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rafael.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.